Woe be unto him who opens one of the 7 gateways to hell, because through that gateway, evil will invade the world.
Valentine's Day is a curse that'll live on, and no one will know as the years come and go of the horror from long time ago. In this little town, when the 14th comes round, there's a silence and fear in the air. Remember the morn that the legend was born, all the shock and the horror was there. Oh, the legend, they say, on a Valentine's Day is a curse that'll live on, and no one will know as the years come and go of the horror from long time ago. And no one will know as the years come and go of the horror from long time ago.
Give me a 2-shot.
All right, guys, we're here for a very special video for 1981. We have Jamie J Sammons here in the a horror in the House of the Sammons, which used to be formerly ABC's of Hidden Horror with her husband, Brian. It's a great show. Hi, how's it going, Jamie?
Oh, it's going well. I'm so excited to finally get to do this. This has been a cursed episode.
A lot of planning.
A lot of planning, a lot of time. You have been incredibly patient. I love you for that. Thank you. but I'm so happy to finally be here.
I'm happy you're here too. So I called in kind of the big dogs, and the pun is kind of there because we're talking about The Howling, which is a werewolf movie. And Jamie is the biggest fan I know of werewolf films, and she's the biggest fan of The Howling I know. She's an expert on all this stuff. So, yeah. So this is, I always bring out people that know more about a certain movie than me or are more passionate about it, because I feel like it's just a way to do it. When you're trying to represent a year, trying to represent a certain movie, you want somebody that knows more than you or is more passionate about that certain movie than you or on the same level. So yeah, The Howling, directed by Joe Dante. His second horror film after Piranha was 78. Great movie. The Howling is probably a bigger movie, and most would say better movie. So I guess we're just going to have Jamie talk about her initial, viewing of The Howling, how she likes it, just some things that come to mind at first. So take it away for a bit.
Okay, well, like you said, I'm a huge werewolf fan. I had a show called Lycan It that was strictly about werewolves, and my license plate says werewolf. So I think you got the right one. But The Howling has always been my favorite. And I know it's like a toss-up between pretty much every horror fan. There's like it's like two camps of people, like in Pulp Fiction, when there's either Beatles people or Elvis people. In the horror world, there tends to be, American Werewolf people or Howling people. And you can like them all. I love An American Werewolf in London. Absolutely. And I will even concede that it is better written. But there's something about the werewolves in The Howling that always got me. One, it's that they are two-legged werewolves. I love my bipedals. I think they're scarier. To me, we'll just keep it with London. That one, the werewolf in London is terrifying. And he's, a four-legged werewolf. But overall, I feel like four-legged werewolves just look like big dogs. And to me, they're scary, but scarier is a big dog coming at you on two legs. And so that's the kind of thing, if I saw that in an alleyway, I would pee myself. So I love that. I also love the fact that it's a whole colony. It's not just a single werewolf story, where those are great. And those typically have the pathos, like the Wolfman, or even An American Werewolf in London, or any of those where it's a cursed individual that can get you on a more emotional level. When you've got something like The Howling, where it's an entire colony of them, and that's like, for instance, the scene where they're like all around the car toward the end and just scraping their nails along the windows, and that like is heart stopping to me. I love it. I also feel like it's a little bit seedy, but I have an affinity for that late 70s, early 80s LA.
Yeah.
And New York.
New York's the best. It just looks rare that it's LA. And it's rare that it's Joe Dante doing this, because the last guy I associate with sleaze is Dante.
Right. But it's kind of dripping with it, especially in the beginning, when we first meet Eddie and where we meet Eddie and that whole setup. And I remember watching this. We had this on, is it CED? Those discs that were in the white cases that you had to pull out and flip over.
It's not Laserdisc. It's kind of like it, but it's
right. But it's like its own thing.
I had one, and it was Rolling Thunder.
Oh wow!
But I didn't have a CD player.
We had that's what we had when I was growing up. And our neighbor, I remember, had a VHS player, and I was so astounded by the VHS, because I'm like, all we have are these giant discs that look like albums, and you have to flip it over halfway through the movie. But the picture quality actually was really good. But that was one of the movies we had. So I've been watching that pretty much since it came out. And I was only about 6 years old when it came out. But that and An American Werewolf in London I saw in the theater, because my parents were huge horror fans, and wherever they went, I went. Like if they went to see a movie, I went to see the movie. Oddly, we've only had one person, this is just an aside, you know me, I talk a lot, tell stories. In all my years of going to horror films with my parents, there was only one time that another moviegoer said something about a child being in the theater and how they thought it was inappropriate. And do you have any idea? You know what? And we hadn't even gone into the movie yet. We had just bought the tickets. It was The Keep.
I mean, you should, if they would have kicked you out, that would have been the movie to get booted out of.
Well, the funny thing is, we ended up not even watching the whole thing because my mom got bored. So
it's a mess. It's a mess.
It is. I've tried to watch it numerous times since then, and I can't do. I want to, but I can't.
I feel the same way. The cast is beautiful. The score is beautiful. Great director. Great monster. Very rarely is there a golem kind of creature. He's so cool. The first 20 minutes, you're like, this is going to be a masterpiece. And then you're like, what is happening? Why is it? It just gets too goofy for how it just doesn't go together. It doesn't make any sense. It's nonsense.
Well, it had a lot of production problems, I think, didn't it?
For sure. Yeah, I mean,
so
they took it away from him and they cut so much of the movie. We actually made an awful joke about this in the My Bloody Valentine. We were talking about the Keep this is the second time the Keep's come up, and we just talk about it. And then I just make jokes how unfortunate it is that they literally just ruined that movie from it. Like,
how weird that should come up. What a random movie.
I know, right? It's such a random movie, and I don't know anyone who has a deep affinity for it except a guy at work who. You know, he brought it up. He's like, "You ever see The Keep?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "I love it." I'm like, "It's all right." Like, I don't know. It's okay.
Good for you, man.
It doesn't make any fucking sense. But speaking of wonderful cast, this is one thing. American Werewolf has a wonderful cast. It's a small cast. It does not have what this movie has, a group of character actors that are just such a weird eclectic group, including stuff like Dick Miller. You got John Carradine, Slim Pickens, Kevin McCarthy, Robert Picardo. Such a great cast. It's got one of my favorite casts, and it actually is probably the last great role John Carradine played. He's so great in the older films, but he kind of became just a. They didn't use him well.
He would show up for a cameo, like in Jacko. That he's, quote, in Jacko, but he's really not. That was
really dead already.
And that's mostly what we got from older John Carradine, was just little bits of things. And I totally agree. I love him in this movie. I think he did an amazing job, and I quote him all the time.
What, my teeth are shot?
Yeah.
Just can't go on like this. My teeth are shot. Oh, Patrick Macnee's excellent, but I love John Carradine's introduction because I hope these guys aren't too weird. And he's like, and it just cuts to him.
I also love how subtle it is that when he tries to throw himself into the fire, you get Karen talking to her friend that she just met, and Bill talking to his friend that he just met, and they get two different stories. Like, one of them is like, oh, he does that for attention, and the other one is, oh, he gets drunk, and then, so that kind of gives you an idea early on that something's not quite right. You just don't know what, but clearly they're giving two different stories, so something is, and plus they just look suspicious. But not to mention Dee Wallace, who
she's great.
She is my all-time favorite horror. Actually, she probably is just my favorite actress. I love her so much, and I love her scream. She has a very, I don't know, you can always tell it's her. It's a very distinctive scream, and I love that. Like with anybody who is a good screamer. I don't know. I think that's she's a legitimate scream queen.
Yeah,
and
she's great.
Christopher Stone. Which they had an amazing real life relationship. Not quite as much in the movie.
That slap says a lot.
Yeah. Oh, wow. And that scene, though, her acting in that scene, everything about it. But yeah. All right.
I think it's really Slim Pickens being in this. This is a movie that I think I initially saw on TV because I loved horror movies. So I think it came on TV, and this is probably one that my parents were like, "Oh, we think you'd like this one." My parents surprisingly, I think they weren't considered movie like crazy, but they watched a lot of movies. Like my mom was a Stephen King fan. My dad loved Westerns. So they got a real big kick out of it, that like everybody was a werewolf, which this is a cult movie too. And they love that Slim Pickens shows up at the end and the sheriff, and he's a fucking werewolf. Who would put and it's great because he plays the sheriff of Nottingham in the Robin Hood cartoon, and he's that big wolf. So he's actually this has got to be one of his last roles, right? So it's got to be one of Slim.
I never even thought about that, but you're right. Yeah, and I think it is, but I never even considered the Robin Hood thing, but you're absolutely right. I kind of wonder if maybe Dante, because that is totally something Dante would do, is put him in the film just because of that.
Very playful. He loved these guys though. He had an eye for good character actors, and I think that he beat Landis in that aspect. I do think so.
I think coming up through Corman, just honed a lot of his skills, and one of those was good character actors, because you get you mentioned Dick Miller, and I mean he obviously was a Corman favorite from way back and played the Walter Paisley in numerous films, just via Chopping Mall,
Twilight Zone too.
Oh, that's right. So then of course he hooked up with Dante, and then he did so much with Dante, and I love him too. He was always he and Jeffrey Lewis were my two of my favorite actors. And I actually talked to Dick Miller on Twitter years ago, like when Twitter first became a thing. And this was when I was early in my horror journalism days, so I was reaching out to people, expecting them to talk to me. He did. And and I said, "Is this really you?" And he goes, "I'm in my 80s. I don't have time to try to hire people to do this for me. I got to figure this shit out on my own." It's all right, way to go.
He always had a rough edge. He seemed like a nice guy, but he had a little rough edge. And I remember seeing those, the kind of behind the scenes in The Burbs, when Corey Feldman runs up and he's "Hey, shut the fuck up, kid," real fast. "Shut the fuck up, kid." And I was like,
well, apparently he should be hanging out with. He should have hung out with Ted White, because Ted White had the pretty much same idea about Corey Feldman.
But he wasn't mean. He was just they were literally trying to discuss a scene, and they're all listening, and he's just saying goofy shit. He's like, "Hey, shut the fuck up, kid," like that. That's just he didn't say it mean. It was just matter of fact as shit. No, but he's great. He's funny as hell in this too. He's just "That's a good book. That's a good book." He's like, "Do you believe this?" He's like, "Am I an idiot? Do I look like an idiot?" He's so good, man. I've always loved him. And Kevin McCarthy's one of my favorite actors too, honestly.
Yeah. And I love how they all take it seriously. Nobody, I don't feel like anybody phoned anything in this film. And I feel like they all took their roles very seriously. And then, like you said, with Slim Pickens being a werewolf, the absurdity of that.
I mean, Slim Pickens is so
But
weird.
He went for it.
Yeah, he's actually one of my favorite character actors when he pops up. I think he was in a couple movies, maybe this year too. He was in a couple TV movies, I think. Maybe I watched another one with him in it from this year or last year. I can't remember, the Trek of the 80s. But he definitely, this has got to be, I think, his last role. And it's certainly, I think it is Carradine's last great role. And he gives him something to do, man. There's so much time when they don't give these guys anything to do. And it's just they're fine in it, but they don't have anything to do. Dee Wallace, you're 100% right about Dee Wallace being. I think she's an underrated scream queen. People forget how many good movies she was in: Cujo, Critters, Popcorn, E.T. The one thing with her is, though, I always think of her as a mom, because she always played her. Her and the lady from the Goonies and Monster Squad, who's in Lethal Weapon, always a mom. Always a mom to me. She's also in the first episode of Tales from the Crypt and All Through the House, or not the first season though. She's the one who. She gets chased by Mary Drake. Yeah, she's in every. She was married to who is she? Donner. Wasn't she married to Richard Donner? Oh, I think she might have been.
Maybe so. I don't know.
She's married to one of those guys at the time. That's why she's probably in all their productions. But no, just a great cast in here. Christopher Stone is an actor that I don't know very well. He's in here, but I'm
I honestly think I may have seen him in a couple of other things over the years, but this is the only role that really sticks out to me, and I mostly knew him as Dee Wallace's husband.
Yeah, right? Like,
and then, of course, after, I mean, you know, she took a long break after he passed, and that just broke my heart because they were so in love, and it was so just an incredible relationship. And so, when she, you know, she came back, and she came back strong. Like, she's working constantly, and good on her.
Like Barbara Crampton just came back with a vengeance. And
100%. And Barbara Crampton is another one that I love. I also love her scream, and she is just as beautiful now as, you know, 40 years ago.
Yeah, she found that fountain of youth somewhere.
It's amazing.
She's using that fucking green shit from fucking Reanimator. She's using the serum. What do they call it? I can't remember what they call it. I can't remember. I don't know if maybe they don't have a name for it.
Where's my
Regenerate? What the fuck is it called? I can't.
Oh my god, I have no idea.
We just have
seen
strokes.
That movie so I probably
50 times probably, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, well, I'm married to a Lovecraftian, so
yeah.
So there's that. Reagent. It's
Reagent. Yes, there we go. Yeah.
He would kick my ass if I didn't remember that.
This is strange. This is an AFCO Embassy release, which was killing it in the early 80s. Because, I mean, you think they also had Scanners this year, Escape from New York, the year before. What else was on there? Halloween 2 was an AFCO Embassy, I think. Like,
I think
they put so much good stuff out at the time. It's kind of amazing to think. And
I love seeing their bumper. You know, it's like right up there with Canon or United Artists. Whenever I see those old Vestron video, like,
Prism was always the fun one because they did some of the cartoons too, and it'd like, and they do the outline. I love that one too as a kid, especially.
Speaking of cartoons, he does use cartoons quite a bit in his movies, and I love that too. That's very Dante.
Well, they have the wolf in here, and this shares the similarity that Dante and Landis, both being huge fans of Universal Horror, incorporate the Wolfman in here in some aspects. I know that Dave Naughton mentions that's the pentagram from the Wolfman, you know, and then I think they might even have a clip of the Wolfman in American Werewolf. I know they do in the Howling.
The Howling,
for sure. Yeah. And it's perfect to do that with. And they both kind of changed the rules of the werewolf, both films.
That's what I've always found fascinating about these two films that came out a matter of months apart, and how it's so wild. And as a kid, I did this when I was like a young child. I was like, okay, this one has a 2-legged werewolf. This one has a 4-legged werewolf. This one you can change anytime. This one you change when the moon is full. Yeah. This one, you know, silver will kill you. This one, silver doesn't matter. But it was almost like they planned it, you know, to be polar opposites of each other.
For sure. I mean, I think that they just have different kind of takes on it. So I know Howling was based on a book, which I've never read. I know that they're not exactly similar. I know Marcia's in there, but it was the original book. The Howling was by Gary Brandner. I have it. I've read it. It's not as good as the movie, I think. I believe it.
I do. I was actually hoping, because you know how sometimes you are very familiar with a film, but then you read the book and you're like, okay, I'm hoping for some answers to some of the questions I had. Yeah, none of that. I didn't get any of that.
I hate that.
Yeah, to me, it read more like a novelization, but it wasn't. And it also was not even close enough to be a novelization, but that's how it reads to me. And when they did Howling 4, that was supposed to be their attempt to do a more accurate version of the book. And I guess it is, but still not great.
Yeah, the Howling sequels, boy, oh boy. The Howling 2, your sister is a werewolf.
Hey, but that end credit scene.
Howling, the shirt. I mean, Howling 2 is a piece of crap, but it's a vastly entertaining piece of crap.
I love that Christopher Lee apologized to Joe Dante
On
because
Gremlins
he was
2. I'm a big
great.
fan of Gremlins 2, probably because the cast and the different assortment of Gremlins, but
I love it.
I'm a big fan. I mean, I love all the little creature movies, except probably like we start getting like Ghoulies like 4 and Ghoulies 1 are just, but Ghoulies 2 and 3 I love. Gremlins 1 and 2,
absolutely. Ghoulies 1, nope.
It's okay. It's okay. Ghoulies 2 I love.
2 I really like.
It's a big,
I'm a
big fan.
I actually like all the Critters movies except for the most recent one, which is sad because that's the one where they brought back Dee Wallace. But
yeah,
I do enjoy the Critters movies and even Hobgoblins.
I don't know if I've ever watched Hobgoblins.
It's so stupid.
It looks pretty. I made crappy small little creature movies, so like I know stupid.
Watch the Rip Tracks version of it if you can find it, because that makes it. Mystery Science Theater, because that makes it palatable. But
I have the Blu-ray from Vinegar Syndrome, so I'll just have to sit down one day and be like, I'm watching this in pristine like cheese quality, I guess.
What's that one? Munchies. That
Munchies.
One. I do not like that movie.
I remember I never watched Munchies, but I watched one of the sequels, like where it's not even a real sequel. It's just like Dom DeLuise voicing over this like Munchie, and he's like on a skateboard, and he's like, "Hey kid, I'm Munchie," and you're like, "This is crap." Yeah, there's 2 sequels to Munchies. They're called Munchie and Munchie Strikes Back, and it's just a big fat puppet. It's not even fat, but he's got a big head, and he's voiced by Dom DeLuise in the first movie. And then the second one, he was like, I ain't doing that again. So they got a guy probably doing a Dom DeLuise impersonation. You gotta love New Concord, man. New Concord is one of another Roger Corman's companies that, I mean, like, it's all connected, right? Like, it's all connected.
Oh, yeah.
Roger Corman.
And very incestuous.
Yes. So going into the Howling sequels, I think I've seen the first 3, and I know I've seen part 6 because that was one I liked because it has the werewolf versus vampire angle for sure.
Yes.
The freaks, and I like that one. I mean, it doesn't hold up as well as I did as a kid, but it's fine. Part 3 is more nonsense, the marsupials, and
I actually like that one only because it used to come on TV a lot when I was a kid, and so I just watched it whenever it was on. So I kind of have a nostalgic feeling for that one, but it's not good. I enjoy it.
That's me with part 6. Like, it was on Sci-Fi all the time, and I'd be like watching this movie where a guy eats a chicken head, a geek eating a chicken head. But so like I don't know if I've ever watched 4 and 5. I know I haven't seen 7, and I don't think I want
the line dancing.
Yeah, I'm not watching that one.
You're not missing anything. I mean, I watched the entire series in a row for liking it. The first I did that for the first Halloween episode for that show and called it Howling-ween, and that's what I love, the titles, and that was the first thing I ever did with Brian, podcast wise.
It's good.
So we watched all of them, and I think he was close to breaking up with me after we got toward the end of them, because he's like, "What? You're seriously making me watch this?" I'm like, look, we have to be complete.
And it's hard to watch. Like, it's cool to pop in like one random movie and watch it, but if you watch an entire series, even a good series gets old really fucking fast. Like,
well, I did that once with Saw. I was doing a guest spot on Banana Laser, and they were doing this Saw shows, and I watched all of them on one Saturday.
that is rough.
And I watched all of them, and I got to tell you, that was dark. Like, I was in a very dark place by the time I was done with that series. I was depressed. And it's the palette, like the color palette of that. You just, in one or two movies, but like 6 movies in a row, and I'm just like, ugh.
Their color palette is like the equivalent of licking behind your toilet on the ground. The linoleum behind your toilet, licking it.
I am so glad people don't do that ugly shit anymore. Like,
Japan used to do it. Like, I feel like Japan could pull it off. Some of their movies had that color palette because it made sense. But like when they did it, I hated how movies looked. American film from like 1998 to like 2005. It was such an ugly time for American cinema. It made me sick to my stomach. And editing styles also just annoyed me. They just pissed me off. I gotta go back to the Howling a bit and mention that it's a great score by Pino Donaggio, which is a rare use for Dante. He also did the Black Cat, Fulci's Black Cat from this year. He scored that as well, and that's a really different score and really good for Fulci score. It's different, and I feel like this one he does a really kind of like good score, but it fits with like the soft focus, dreamlike quality. Because Howling is a strange look to it. It has like a soft focus, almost like you're in a dream throughout the entire film.
It does, and kind of horny in a way at times.
Super sexy.
I think that goes along with the whole bit of sleaziness, like we were talking about earlier. But do you know who my favorite composer is?
Is it Pino Donaggio?
It is Pino Donaggio.
There we go. I mean, he's good.
He's fantastic, even with goofy stuff like Tourist Trap. You know, when it's
that's
like
a great score.
I love it. I love it. And so he is my absolute favorite. And I really, before I even realized he was the person who did the score for The Howling, and I already loved The Howling, but I was too young. I hadn't put together, you know, composers and stuff like that at that point. But I fell in love with his music from watching Brian De Palma films. And
such a good score.
And then I was like, this guy, I like this guy. And then I was like, holy shit, he did The Howling. And the Howling score is one of my all-time favorite scores. That end credits song, I just listen to that on loop sometimes. I just love it.
The end with the news station one.
Where you're watching the burger cook on the grill, and it's
I love that.
You know, I love that music.
And it's so predictable. She's gonna say rare. Like I rewatched it, and I hadn't watched it since very early in the year. And I remember I was just like, "How do you want your burger?" I was like, "Rare." And then she said rare. I was like, "Oh, you have to. How could you not?" Like, so like you have to like. And then they have the little stinger at the end. The where will God be with you? Like from the Wolfman on the
yes.
So what was I gonna say about do you check out any of the other werewolf films? Some of the lesser seen ones. I mean, I guess you'll go more like the Lycan kind of focused on here, because there's a slew of them from '81, not just from like the big two, and then you of course have Wolfen, which is good.
And I love the movie. I will forever be sad though that it doesn't end up actually being a werewolf.
Yeah, they're not werewolves.
I was like, oh. And then that book, speaking of like werewolf movies from books, that book is totally, I mean, they're like, it's been a year since I read it, but I want to say he describes them with like human hands, like
weird.
They're wolves, but with human hands. And I'm like,
they were definitely like, we're not doing that. We're not doing that.
And how would you even like? That would just be goofy.
That'd be strange.
What else came out in 81?
You have the Paul Naschy werewolf film.
That's right. Yeah,
fucking a blast. That's a blast. And that's the third werewolf we have, because we have like the bipedal, big monstrous one, which is the Howling and Dog Soldiers, and even I would say something like Waxwork, the werewolf, and that is similar. Speaking of Patrick Macnee, he's in.
Thank you for bringing that up. No one ever talks about that movie, and
great movie.
I love it. I love that movie, and because I love all the little vignettes and how they did, you know, black and white for the zombie scene, and I think the werewolf in that looks fantastic.
The werewolf and mummy segments are top tier stuff there.
Yes.
But then we also Night of the Werewolf, I would say, like, and American Werewolf is the quadrupedal. You got them on the fours, but Night of the Werewolf is straight up Lon Chaney Jr. werewolf kind of deal. You know, Naschy he's very good werewolf. He played him 10 times, 15 times.
Yeah, I was gonna say 12. I have the whole. Like I have his whole all of his movies, and I love the fact that he had such passion for it.
I do too. And Night of the Werewolf is a great one. It's one of his best, I think, that I've seen.
I agree. I actually forgot that was the same year.
Yeah, crazy, right?
And it's like something was in the water.
Slashers and werewolves, because werewolf movies are far and few in between. Besides the Universal flicks, Hammer only made one. You got Curse of the Werewolf, and then
Senior.
I love Curse of the Werewolf. Because I love Oliver Reed.
Love it. No, I love Oliver Reed. I love that movie, but it cracks me up because they're so British.
Oh yeah.
And it's, you know, it's supposed to be in Spain. So there was this one scene where he's like, "Oi, what's this in?" Senor?
And British people
What?
just refuse to do accents. They're like, I'm a Nazi now. It's like, I don't know, man. You don't sound like a Nazi. I
They're all
said
Sean
I was
Connery.
a Nazi. It's like Donald Pleasance. He was the only one that will do an accent and it won't even be right half the time. But he's so good, he don't care.
Well, and like Sean Connery, he never does an accent. He's like, I don't care if I'm Egyptian.
It's like, I'm an Irish beat cop. It's like, sounds Scottish to me. What's the difference? But then we also have, of course, this one's rare, and I wanted to see if you've seen this one. And now it's more of a psychological werewolf kind of deal. It's called Wolf Hour, and it's like it goes under its other name, like Euladavid, and it's like it's so bizarre. This guy is like raising wolves, and this woman shows up, and he's like married, and this woman starts to infiltrate, kind of like she's maybe a wolf or a werewolf of sorts, and it never really comes out and says it, but it's a lot of psychological mind games. It's really good. It's really fucking slow, but it's well done. And I was like, this is fucking a hidden gem. I was very impressed by it.
Oh my God, no! I will have to. Hang on a second. I'm gonna write that down.
It's called Wolf Hour. It's really good stuff. I was happy with it. And don't expect like an all-out like gore fest, or like it's like if you've ever seen that movie from 1970 called Low Keys, where it's about the professor who goes to like the place and he's like they're like worried there's possibly, and the ending, everyone like that's when we did 1970. I was like, I love this. I love that, and the Wolf in the Woods, which are both like kind of werewolf kind of storylines, shapeshifter storylines, and they're very subtle, and I loved them. And everyone's like, those aren't that good. I'm like, I don't know. Maybe I just like period pieces of people like just talking about it. I don't know. But they just spoke to me. And the end of Low Keys, I thought was very similar to this movie, how like he's leaving and he sees the spread of animals and he assumes that one of those was possibly one of the people at the place who could change. And I just thought that was really well done. And this one has kind of a similar kind of vein to it. I think you'd like it.
I will definitely. Is it hard to find? Like, do I have to?
I can find it for you if you can't find it. I don't know if there's ever been a release in the States, so that's kind of a deal, you know, because when I do these, I do everything, so I see everything, you know.
No, that's true. I know something else that I just thought of that came out in 1981 that
I know you're gonna mention it.
Are you talking about Full Moon High?
Larry Cohen's masterpiece?
Look, I love Larry Cohen. I do. I'm going to be doing a director spotlight on him coming up. I adore that man. I was so excited for this movie. And this is a recent watch for me. This is not one that I've seen years ago. I just saw it. I want to say I was watching, I think I got it from Brad from Cinema Snob, who was doing his yearly things. Yeah. And he was, doing 1981, and oh no, it wasn't. It was fucking The Darkness, that doc.
Oh, Search of Darkness.
In Search of Darkness, the very first one. And they mentioned it. I was like, holy shit, how have I never seen this movie? And look at the cast. And
Ed McMahon.
And it's a spoof. And what? So we immediately watched that movie, and I was so sad because I just didn't think it was funny at all.
I am okay with it. I expected the worst movie ever because I heard bad things. And I think I ended up giving it a 3 out of 5, and I laughed a few times, but I'm also a degenerate. A lot of the jokes were outdated and just so he basically just wanted to do I Was a Teenage Werewolf, but a spoof. Yeah. And I don't think it's the best spoof of 81, but it sure is fuck a lot better than Saturday the 14th, which I hate.
Oh,
I love Student Bodies though. Love Student Bodies.
I just rewatched that. I rewatched Student Bodies a few months ago. I love that movie. When Brian and I first met, that was one of the I dropped something and I was like, no, I picked up a piece of chicken and I was like, chicken. I had no idea he was going to get it. And he goes, broken. And I'm like, what? It was meant to be.
That movie's the one that gets me. I literally say it all the time and it puts me in tears because it does the Wizard of Oz ending. And it's like, And you were my French teacher, and the gym teacher is my favorite. The woodshop teacher. He's so good. And he's like, but I will always be your French teacher. And after him being like that pervert the whole time, him doing the French accent with a little beret and mustache, I will always be your French teacher. I'm just like, the movies. That's the kind of dumb shit I like. I love
sometimes that Malbert is red.
Exactly.
I sadly I love Saturday the 14th. I didn't know everybody didn't love it until a few years ago when everybody pretty much sems to hate it.
I did not like it. I hated it, and I tried to. It was one of the only movies I hated from this year. I gave it like a 5, which is not hated. I mean, I didn't like it. I don't know what it was. It does the opposite of Abbott Costello Beat Frankenstein. The monsters are jokes. And it should be the other way around, man. I'm not.
I mean, I can see that. And I will concede that there are bits in the middle that drag it down and it gets kind of boring. But I think what it is I saw that at the drive-in when it came out. And I just remember I was so excited because I was picking up on all the little nods and details. Plus I was a big Gimme a Break fan, and what's her name? The daughter was the daughter from Gimme a Break. And I was just like, oh.
I mean, I have tons of movies that everyone hates that I'm like, that's great. I love it. And they're like, it's terrible. I'm like, I don't see why it's terrible. Like, sometimes I do. Sometimes I don't. But I can admit it when I'm wrong.
I mentioned Jacko earlier. I love Jacko. Like, I have to watch that every Halloween.
I can watch it. So. And I can watch Jacko, and I can be fine with it.
I can.
I mean, I don't hate it.
If you make me.
I don't hate it. Like, there's a lot of ones that people just hate. Like Neon Maniacs. I'm like, I love Neon Maniacs. I know it's not the completed movie. I don't care. Like,
no, that's a fun one. We actually rewatched that not too long ago too. Like things like Terror at Tent Killer, which is really obscure.
They just put that out on 4K, didn't they?
I like it. So it's one of those. I like it. I mean, it's bad, but it's fun.
The song "Mine Oh Mine" is really catchy too.
Yeah. Oh, and I got it on a 2-pack before it was put out on 4K. Brian got it for me on a 2-pack with
Last
Slumber Party. Yes.
I've never watched that one. I'll get to it when I get to it, but I know it.
You should. It's so fucking horrible, but in all the best ways. All the best ways.
And one more werewolf movie. One more werewolf appearance. And this one's the most obscure, I'd say. And it's I don't think you've seen it, because I didn't even know there was a werewolf in it until I watched it. It's not even a werewolf movie. There's just a werewolf in it.
Are you talking about The Monster Club?
No, but there is a werewolf in that. I forgot about that. I love The Monster Club.
See, I do too. Nobody else likes that movie either.
The Ghoul Story with Patrick Macnee and Stuart Whitman is fucking horrifying.
Yeah.
That's a great story.
I hear people refer to that as a kid's movie, and they're just like, I don't like it. It's too much of a kid's movie. And I'm like, what are you? Whatever. I enjoy it.
They don't remember it.
But what were you? So what's the one that you were gonna say?
It's basic. Jose Larraz did one, who did like Symptoms and Vampires, and it's a comedy, and it's called National Mummy. But there's a Dracula doctor in it. There's a female mummy whose breasts are hanging out the whole movie, and she's trying to sleep with everyone, and she's like a juggernaut. And then there's a werewolf in it who's like a professor who's turning into a werewolf. I'm like, this is the goofiest, stupidest thing ever, but I really like it. That's kind of spoofy too. So like, I have a weird sense of humor. I find almost everything funny, except every once in a while there's just something I will not like. But no, there's just so many werewolves. That doesn't typically happen.
No, it like I said, it's like there was something in the water, I swear. And another thing, you mentioned this regarding The Howling. You mentioned, it being a cult movie.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad to hear you say that, because a lot of people, I don't ever hear anyone bring it up. And it is, and not just in the sense that they are at a colony with a bunch of people who are members of this group and, they're doing culty things. But I mean, look at it like I can't remember her name, Karen's friend. She's talking about how, I've done it all, primal screamers, and, she's done to all these different things, all of these different metaphysical you know, and this is what she landed on. And, you know, a lot of those other things have been associated with cults. So I think it was definitely on purpose.
For sure.
That, you know, I think he was, and I don't remember that part being in the book. Like, I don't, you know, remember that.
Dante definitely going to make fun of these kind of like, after the Manson family, he's definitely going to make fun of these new age kind of like weird culty things out there. And just same thing as Cronenberg did in his films when he talks about the Brood, that new age science stuff, that he doesn't like it because there's a lot of people that find that a lot of these weird things are dangerous and stupid and manipulative, of course. But this is fun because we have these two different kind of groups meeting. We have those new age younger people, and then we have the old kind of character actors who want the old ways, right? And they're kind of just a mixture of them, which is kind of cool. I think that there's a couple of things I really like. How Dante just makes it fun. He has callbacks all the time, like the Asian news reporter that's brought up twice and stuff. He just he's very fun.
Fujimoto or Fukuyama or whatever the hell her name is.
And then they say, "You're our favorite. You're our favorite." After what's that Asian girl's name later on? Like they just bring that stuff up. Like he's clever in his writing. He doesn't forget what he's writing, and he makes little payoffs that a lot of people I don't think would register right away. And I think that's nice. I mean, he's definitely playful, super playful in his scripts, or in the way he's directing, because it's a John Sayles script, right?
Yes.
And Sayles is on.
And Sayles is amazing.
The year before, he wrote Alligator, which is the best killer animal movie besides Jaws, I'd say. But still.
I am so on board with that. Did we just become best friends?
I think maybe. I mean, out of 160 movies, Alligator was in my top 10. And that says a lot from 1980. That's a strong year.
That Alligator was the first, when we first started ABCs of Hidden Horror, that was my A pick. And I absolutely love that bit, the swimming pool bit. And where the kid, you know, walks the plank. And that haunts me to this day. And I'm old, but even now, if I'm in a pool and I think about that, I'm out. And then I will look down in the water to be sure. And do I know that's silly? Yes, but I don't
care. That's because I was like 10 or 11 years old. I'd be like, "Ma, come watch me swim." She's like, "Why?" But like, you know what I mean? You just want somebody out there watching you, so the pool monster doesn't eat you because of alligator.
And that's another one that it was clearly, you know, in the wake of Jaws. In the wake. See what I did there?
Yeah, I do.
Like Grizzly, you know.
I love Grizzly too.
I do too. I mean, it's a fucking rocket launcher. Like, like who kills a bear with a bazooka?
I do prefer Day of the Animals over Grizzly, just because it's so more chaotic and scary.
And Leslie Nielsen fighting a bear shirtless. I mean,
hands down.
Wow, you know,
just takes his shirt off.
He is so in it. What's funny about him is he got so popular for being a comedic actor later on that people often forget that he started as a dramatic actor. And so they'll go, you know, people that have never seen that side of him, you know, I've shown that movie to people and they're like, what? You know, just totally shocked. And I'm like, yeah, that's what he did.
He's good at everything. I mean, he's good. He's a good actor. Is there any other things you want to mention about the Howling?
Only everything. One thing that I always find myself defending about that film, and people come down on it, is the bits of the effects that are like there's that scene after the sex scene when then you see the wolves, like there's the animation, I guess. People have issues with the animation. I don't. I think it looks really good, and it's not like I would look at that and say, oh, that's real, but it's, you know, it's a werewolf movie. I don't really think that anyway. So it's, you know, I thought it was good. Also the bit with the three at the end where I want to say that part is claymation.
Claymation is what it looks like to me.
Yeah. And they, so you've got some fantastic practicals as far as the werewolves themselves. And Then you've got a little bit of animation and a little bit of claymation and I love that. I love that it's kind of like a mixed media bit of thing. He's like, I want to do what I can do for this scene to get exactly what I want. And then the little things like wolf chili, you know, the fact that Eddie's signature is a smiley face.
Yeah. Which plays on that whole bastardization of the hippie culture, right?
Exactly.
Because he's a monster. He's actively a serial killer werewolf, which is a scary idea.
And he does it for the lulz.
Yeah, he does it. He does it like
not to reference a shitty movie, but I just referenced a shitty movie.
What was that?
That was Smiley.
I never watched it. It looked terrible, but it's also definitely a Hooper thing too, because if you look at The Hitchhiker or of course Bill Moseley, Chop Top, they both have that kind of hippie kind of style, but they're scary monsters. They're the Manson thing, and and I do see the similarities there. Like, you know what I mean? I feel like a lot of these guys come from the same school of thought. You know, Dante and Hooper and a lot of them. So, and Landis, they have.
Well, they're pretty much like all the same generation.
Contemporaries for sure, yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, it makes sense that I guess they have a lot of the same thought processes and ideals. But yeah, you look at all three of them, Eddie, TC, and Marcia. They're all like bohemian almost, or well, TC straight up animalistic.
Yeah.
But yeah, they focus on that, and then the whole man-eater of Marcia. That I always loved her. When I was a kid, good. I was just like goals. Like I was like, I want to be Marcia. That's probably not good, but
it's funny when you're young. You're always like, when I was young, I was like, what a piece of shit. He's cheating on his wife out of it. And as you get older, you're like, I get it. Like, I shouldn't say shit. Like, it's so terrible.
Well, she was kind of a bitch.
I mean, Dee Wallace was fine, but I mean, she was going through it. He should have never done that. That's horrible. That's like that movie Demented or something, like from 1980, where like she's having like a breakdown, and he's like out there cheating on her and stuff all the time. Jamie Gillis, isn't it? Is it Gillis?
Yes.
Yeah, terrible movie, but yeah, not the worst movie, but still, yeah, it's just like terrible husbands in the 80s all over the place.
You know, well, and it. I like the fact, I like the way he approached their relationship, because you have the very real, in the book, she's actually raped.
Oh. By Eddie.
By Eddie, yeah. It's a, like, it goes all the way there. So I guess in the book, her level of trauma makes more sense.
Yeah.
Then, sure. Although I think what she went through in the movie is you know, incredibly traumatic. So that, to me, that's enough. But I like the fact that, you know, he doesn't quite get what's going on with her. But then he tells her when she accuses him, like when he comes back late, you know, and he's got those scratches on him. And when she accuses him, he says, "You don't know what it's like." And I'm like, well, maybe you don't know what it's like to have gone through what I went through, and I need you right now. Like, yes, you have your manly need. That is not good enough. I'm sorry. Like, in that situation, it is not good enough.
He's not a likable character, honestly. I mean, he's a fine actor. He does fine. He does what he's supposed to. But to me, he's not as interesting either as Dee Wallace or the two friends, Belinda Balaski. She's good. She's underrated in this, honestly. She does a lot of the legwork and carries the film forward a lot. And I hate what happens to her. I feel bad for her. And Dennis Dugan, who I looked up before this, and I didn't register that he became a director and directed everybody's favorite, a bunch of fucking comedy movies from the 90s. Like, I was going to make a joke, but half the movies I really like and half just look like crap. A bunch of Adam Sandler and Chris Farley movies that I used to watch as a kid, and then he kept making them. So, I mean, he like directed Beverly Hills Ninja and Problem Child, which is insane to me.
What?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I did not know that. That's incredible. Yeah. I love him. He is actually behind Dee Wallace. I think he's my favorite character. And
unlikely hero.
Yeah. And he takes the shit seriously. He immediately, when Terry's in trouble, he just hauls ass. You know, he goes and he grabs the silver bullets, and I love that. Well, I gotta check with the jewelers, see how much to charge.
Bill me.
And he doesn't take 1 second to think about his own safety or anything. He just goes. And I love that about him.
And I love. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go.
I was just gonna laugh about at the gas station when that guy's like, he's like, "Hey, we can't afford this." He's like, "Come on, man!" That guy starts busting his balls about having a nice car when he's talking
that was actually, that's funny, because when I was talking about him just not caring about his own safety, that's actually how much of a rush he was in. That's the scene I was thinking of, because he's just like, not everybody can afford a Mazda, and then he's like, "Come on." I'm like, oh, I get it, because he wants to get there. Wasn't Belinda Balaski, wasn't she married to Joe Dante?
I'm not sure.
She was married to somebody. But I think it was Dante, because she was also in Gremlins.
Oh, who's she in Gremlins? I don't remember.
She, a very tiny role. She played a mother, like a poor mom, that I think she's about to get kicked out of her house or something by Miss Deagle.
That's just not registered. It's been a while since I sat down and really focused on. I put it on in the background a couple times, when people are with Gremlins, but it's been a long time since I focused on Gremlins 1. I mean, Dante always uses the same group of people. I mean, Dick Miller, of course, and Kevin McCarthy, and there's a lot of people he reuses, and a lot of them pop up in here.
Yeah, but I love when directors do that. A lot of people have issues with that. I love it. I think if you can form a relationship with your actors, then you are way more likely to get what you're trying to get. And of course, you know each other, you know the ins and outs of your personalities and what works and what doesn't. I think it's phenomenal. So whenever anybody does that, and that includes Rob Zombie.
I agree. I mean, Rob Zombie's best part is his cast in Devil's Rejects, and he let a lot of those guys get the shine. It's like the white trash lower version of Quentin Tarantino, like giving these guys another chance. And I like a lot of Rob Zombie's movies, and I don't love everything. It's the same thing. I like more of his movies than I dislike. The same thing with Eli Roth. I don't love everything. I think some's okay, some's crap, but that's with anybody. But I don't have some weird blind love for anybody or some blind hatred for either of them either, like a lot of people seem to have. It's strange.
Yeah, I don't get it. Eli Roth is one that I mean, I get that his movies can be hit or miss. By the way, I fucking loved Thanksgiving.
One of the best of the year that I saw.
Absolutely. It actually sat at my #1 spot. Here's a little sneak preview. We haven't put our show out yet, but it sat at my #1 spot until we watched something else more recently, and then I was like, okay, that one kind of killed it. But it was amazing. I loved every bit of it, and I love him because, regardless of what you think of his films, the man is a horror fan, and there is no question about that. He knows his shit, and I could listen to him talk for hours because he knows what he's talking about, and that just impresses me. I love it. I love the passion. And Zombie, same way. Whether you like his movies or not, you cannot deny the fact that the man is a horror fan. And I just rewatched Devil's Rejects on Saturday morning. I got up on Saturday morning and I was like, I want to watch Devil's Rejects.
Devil's Rejects is genuinely, and it's weird because a lot of the movies that get later it's one of my favorite horror movies, and that's probably one of the last ones that really clenched one of those spots. Because I typically 1960 to like 1995 kind of guy. Almost all my favorite movies or horror movies are from that time frame. But Devil's Rejects just spoke to me because it felt like a Western trashy exploitation thing, and I just love that shit.
I do too. And it kind of goes back to my whole love of the underbelly of LA and New York in the late 70s, early 80s. I love the grittiness of it. And I'm a big most of mine are in the 70s. I feel like the 70s were a phenomenal time for cinema overall, just in general. And we got some phenomenal horror films. My top 3 are from the 70s. And
let me guess. I think I know them.
Okay.
I know 2 for sure. It's The Exorcist, Dawn of the Dead.
Yes.
And it's got to be, is it Halloween?
Jaws.
Fuck, better. Jaws is better than Halloween. That's a better choice. I mean, not to be a dick, but I mean, it's like, my favorite 3 are very, very similar, so it's kind of dumb to guess them, but I think everybody could probably. Not in the 70s. Do you want my favorite 70s?
I was gonna say not from. I was gonna say I was gonna say I thought I knew one, but then if it's in the 70s, but I
No.
guess no, you just in general. Is
One-
it Day of the Dead one of your?
Day's my favorite.
Okay.
And then Return, and then Dawn, or Dawn and then Return, depends. Whatever. I like zombies. Those are my 3 favorites. I can't help
Yeah.
it.
Day of the Dead actually scares me to this day. If I
And
watch it alone, I can't sleep.
I don't know if it scares me. I just love the movie so much. It's like so embedded, and I could quote the whole. I love every aspect of the thing. You know, like after you watch a movie so many times, you remember every line, every detail, right?
Oh yeah, and you could sit there and just like I could bring Brian in the room between the 3 of us. We could go through the whole movie.
I'll set us down, but I'll keep the engine running, and I won't leave my seat. If you ain't on board when that happens, you're bound to have a lousy afternoon.
A lousy afternoon.
Yeah, do the whole movie.
That one, I did an article on that for the 30th anniversary and I was talking about how what scares me about that film is more so I feel like that's actually what would happen if we were in that situation. You know, you would have groups of people, and then likely would have some, like in this case with military, who are just out of control.
Lose their
get
goddamn
crazy.
minds. Everybody loses their minds.
And that terrifies me. That is what I think is scariest about, and I've always thought was scariest about zombies. So if I am watching that alone and then I try to go to bed, I seriously will spend like 2 hours just listening in case I hear a helicopter. And that is the stupidest thing, I know. Bo makes fun of me all the time because I am scared by the dumbest things. Like I got trapped in my library a few months ago because it was dark and I came in here to find a book, and then I went to leave and I thought about Exorcist 3. And
scissors?
there's the hallway scene.
Yeah.
So I couldn't leave the room. I was like, if I leave the room, then something's going to come out. And I'm a grown ass woman, but I don't try to hide it. You know, I get scared, and that's what I love about it. That's, you know,
I mean, I wish I could get scared like that though. I always have like existential crisis moments like that just make me feel terrible. Like I don't usually I'm not big into like marijuana, but every once in a while, you know, like you're like, I try it because I think maybe it'll be different this time. And it's not usually different. So like I took something
like watching The Keep.
Yeah. I guess I'll try this again. It's going to be good this time. I know it. The Tangerine Dream score will pull through. But
I love Tangerine Dream.
I watched this movie Saturn 3 and I was high, and it was a stronger dose than I knew because I didn't know what I was doing, and I literally had an existential like crisis for like, I don't want to be old. Everybody's trying to fuck Farrah Fawcett. It's making me sick. All these old people. Now the robot wants to fuck her. I'm like having a heart attack over here. I literally felt
Oh
like
my
shit.
God.
And I was just like had like a midlife crisis watching Saturn 3, a goofy sci-fi horror movie. I did laugh out hysterically out loud once by myself when the robot, like it zoomed in on the robot and he was like, "Grrr," and he woke up and put himself back together. I started cracking up, like just cackling, like, and I was just like, such a dumb movie. Like I didn't want to rewatch it because I had such a weird experience with it then. I was like, that's gonna be it. That's it. That's it for Saturn 3. Never again.
That's great.
So this is a quick fun game here. No explanation.
Yay!
All you have to do is say Howling or the other movie, which one you like better from 1981 horror movies.
Okay.
It's going to be tough.
Are these all werewolves or just 81 in general?
Just 81 in general. So
Okay.
we're gonna do some of the heavy hitters and then maybe a couple randoms. No explanation, and then we can wrap up afterwards. So
Okay.
the Evil Dead,
Howling.
Possession,
Howling.
American Werewolf in London,
The Howling.
Halloween 2,
Oh, damn. The Howling.
Scanners,
Fuck. All right, I'm gonna have to go Scanners on them.
Friday the 13th Part 2,
The Howling.
The Beyond,
Oh. The Howling.
My Bloody Valentine,
Damn it. My Bloody Valentine.
The Burning,
The Howling.
Funhouse,
Oh. The Howling.
Dead and Buried.
The Howling.
House by the Cemetery.
Damn it!
It's a good year. It's a hard year, isn't it?
That is, I have said my entire life, 1981 is my all-time favorite year for horror. I just think overall, it's incredible.
It's a good one.
Fuck me. I'll have to go The Howling. That's hard.
Road Games.
The Howling.
The Prowler.
The Howling.
Happy Birthday to Me.
The Howling.
Butcher, Baker, Nightmare Maker.
The Howling.
Dark Night of the Scarecrow.
The Howling.
Wolfen.
The Howling.
I imagine Madman, Just Before Dawn, and Hell Night don't stand a chance, right?
Just Before Dawn does not. Hell Night's giving it a run for its money. That's my favorite slasher.
It's a fun one.
Non-franchise. The Howling for all three, though. Yeah, it's hard to beat that one.
Cannibal Ferox.
The Howling.
Let's see, Bloody Birthday.
The Howling.
I'll just do a couple more. The Burial Ground.
The Howling. That's
Ghost Story.
The Howling.
Evil Speak.
Oh, man. Glenn Howard.
That's a fun one.
I have to go The Howling.
I don't think anything else is gonna top it out here.
I think I only give it to one that wasn't The Howling. Like, oh no, two. My Bloody Valentine
And Scanners.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's because Cronenberg. It is really hard to beat Cronenberg for me.
You know, I think I like The Howling better than Scanners. Scanners is the one that I like it, but it's never been the top for me. Like, my favorites, I think, are The Brood, Rabid, and The Fly. I think those three are my favorites.
I don't love Rabid. I wish I did. Like, I like it, but it's not his favorite. I do love The Fly. I would say my tops with him are Scanners, and I'll actually tell you why in a second. But Scanners.
Oh, Videodrome's great too.
Videodrome. Damn. Because yeah, all of them. I love them all. I love that man. But Scanners for me, you know what it is that end where he's in that battle with Reebok or Revick.
Yeah, he's great.
The Michael Ironside face, like the veins popping out and all of that, it makes me look away. It grosses me out. And if you
rough.
can do that, then I got to give you credit for it. But
Ironside is so good in that fucking movie. Honestly, that's got to be top 4 performances of that year. I mean, the only two, like, I'm looking at the performances and I'm like, Sam Neill and Isabella Adjani are the best performances probably of the year, because I think they literally were trying to kill each other in the Possession movie. But like, I don't know, like, is Michael Ironside the one of the top 3 performances of that in 1981? I think he might be.
I mean, and look at his performance in Visiting Hours.
He's always good.
Which he is sinister
Unhinged.
And scary as hell. He's so scary. He's one of those people that I just think are automatically scary, and I wouldn't want to piss him off. Like James Brolin is one, and Michael Ironside is what. Yeah, like I don't want to make those guys mad because they scare me. But
it's so weird. It's like you look at James Brolin, you said, or you say Josh?
James.
You look at James Brolin, you're like, oh, he's so handsome, and then you look at Josh, and you're like, it looks like your dad fucked a rock. Because he's not bad looking. He's not a bad looking guy, but he's just got, his features are a little bit more harsher than his dad.
Yeah. No, you're right.
It's
James Brolin is very attractive, but when I saw the Amityville Horror, he scared the shit out of me.
Fuck
so.
Yeah. He's pretty intense in that. He's bigger guy too, I think, in comparison to most actors.
Yeah, I think he's rather tall. Like and what was really hard for me is kind of funny with like Happy Birthday to Me and Bloody Birthday. I watch those both every year on my birthday, and I have a deep love for them.
Happy
But,
Birthday
you
to Me
know.
is totally underrated movie. Rewatching that, I was like, oh man, this is way better than I remembered. It's got a classy director, J. Lee Thompson behind it, and it's just like this is way better than it
Glenn
has any
Ford?
right to. Yeah, it has way better than any right than it is. You know what I mean?
I feel like the one thing that drags that movie down, and they had some issues when they were making that film, but the one thing I feel like if they could just cut out some of the brain stuff, because in the end it doesn't really matter. Like I know what they were trying. I mean, and I like it. I like that he was, you know, trying to fuck with us the whole time, and it works. But I just feel like it's such a long movie that
Yeah, it's
some
a
of
little
that
long.
stuff could have been taken out and it wouldn't have hurt anything. But I love the kills.
The cast and the group of kids are all good too.
Yeah, well, yeah, and of course at that time, I was all into Little House on the Prairie, so seeing Mary Ingalls in a movie like that, also like she did like Midnight Offerings.
Yeah, that's a TV movie from 1981. Yeah. That's not a bad movie at all, really.
I like it. I've always
decent.
liked that.
A lot of decent TV movies from 81. Dark Knight of the Scarecrow is cream of the crop, though.
Excellent. That is probably one of the best all-time TV movies.
That might be a top 10 for me.
It's incredible. And Larry Drake, he breaks my heart.
He's great. Great actor. I love him in Darkman. It's one of my favorite performances of all times. In the beginning, he's like, 1, I try not to let the anger get the best of me. 2, I don't know to succeed. 3, I got 7 more points.
I just watched that because we're doing the collection, so it hadn't been that long since I watched Darkman.
That's one of my favorites.
But yeah, the 81, that's a rough one. Do you have have you ordered them?
Oh boy, I have my favorites. I go back and forth. Like I'm like, I feel so shitty leaving some of these out of my top 10. I do a top 25, and I'm sure I can get most of my favorites in the top 25. But in 1980, I couldn't. Like I left Fade to Black out of my top 25.
Oh, that's one that people don't talk about.
It's a great movie.
It's a shame. It's a great movie.
Objectively, it's top 25 of that year. That's insulting. That's not in there, but that's my preference, man. I had to put Anthropophagus in there.
Oh my god, I love that movie.
It was my 25. I was like, I put Anthropophagus in there. Fuck it. And then there's like horror adjacent movies. Like for 81, I'm like, is Miss 45 a horror movie? Because if it is, it's in my top 5. But if it's not, what do I do?
You know what's funny is it's one of those borderline movies where it's like it's not really a horror film, but the horror community is the only community that would accept something like that, you know, like a rape revenge movie kind of thing. Like that's why, you know, I Spit on Your Grave lands in horror. Like I really don't think it's a horror film, but it's
more slasher though, you know, too. Like I Spit turns into like more of a pick 'em off, and Last House feel those two I feel are, but I don't feel like Thriller or Cruel Picture or Miss 45 or horror movies.
No, but you know what's funny is the first time I ever saw anything about Miss 45 was Terror in the Aisles. We went to see that when it came out in the theater. And I thought it was like a scary movie on an island. My mom was like, we're going to see Terror in the Aisles.
Oh, yeah.
Like, oh, okay. But
is this like The Island? Has it got Michael Caine in it? What's going on?
Right. Is it like Island of the Alive?
It's Alive 3?
But they did show, with that like clip show, they did a lot of movies that weren't horror movies, like Nighthawks. Oh my god, that's the one I was gonna say.
Well, it's in there, and it's
so
a thriller.
Weird.
I've never watched Terror in the Aisles, but I know what's in it, and I know Nighthawks is 81.
When I saw it in the theater, I loved it. I like stuff like that. But then later on, I watched it, and that's where I just started writing things down, like things and that movie is responsible for me seeing a lot of the stuff that I've seen now. Miss 45 and Nighthawks being 2 of those. And I love Nighthawks.
Miss 45 is one of my favorite movies, and it's just fucking sad. Like that part.
It is very sad.
Fucked up movie. It's a fucked up movie. It's really it's twisted. It's insane. But like, yeah, Nighthawks, I'll watch. I'm gonna watch it for 81. I have the Blu-ray. There's gonna be some horror adjacent stuff. I watched a bunch of horror adjacent stuff, like what is it? Blowout I watched, and of course Shock Treatment, which I love. But they're not horror movies, but they're like made by, they're horror adjacent, right? Like Shock Treatment.
Well, yeah, because you got De Palma with Blowout, which is one of my favorite De Palma movies.
It's great.
Yeah, and that's just a damn good year. So, but you're doing all, right? Like you're not just doing horror, are you?
I'm doing horror, but I'm doing like horror adjacent too.
Okay,
Anything that, or like if there's like hey, John Waters directed this movie, it's not necessarily horror, but I'm gonna watch it anyways, just to get everything cult and horror oriented. I did some like Pinky films, which are borderline horror movies, like the Nakatsu erotic films, but a lot of them are just like not really. It's just like, this is just a lady getting raped in a rope, and like some of it's horror, some of it's not. It's just like they're all the same movie anyways, for the most part. Not all of them, but a lot of them, you know what I'm saying? But they're listed as horror on Letterboxd, which is very liberal on what they list as horror.
I guess so. Are you a Desperate Living or Pink Flamingos fan?
I've seen Pink Flamingos and I like it. I love Serial Mom.
Oh, I do. That was Serial Mom was actually the first John Waters movie I watched. So then imagine my surprise when I later went on to watch Pink Flamingos, and I was like, oh,
this guy's gross. Like,
and I was living in a duplex at the time, and my roommate and I were watching it together, and that part where Crackers goes, "Do my balls, mama," like really loud. I was so embarrassed, and my neighbor came over. Or he also owned the duplex. And I'm like, oh, great. Now he's going to think we're some degenerates here. But he came knocking on the door and he's like, you're a John Waters fan?
Oh, that's good. That's good. You got lucky there. Sometimes like when you live at home, you're always like turning the volume down. You're like, I can't let fucking mom hear this.
Well, like even here, noise carries through our neighborhood. So we'll have like in the summertime, if we have the windows open or like the sliding door open or something. And, Brian will just have something cranked up, and I'm like, everyone can hear that. They're going to think we're murdering someone.
I'm not bad with sound because we live off a main road, but we have a giant window in our front, and it's a huge main road. And I'll be watching like some Nakatsu movie or some like horror porn, like, and my window will be open. And if it's like, they can see right in, I'm just like, this 85-inch TV screen of just some fucking weird, nasty movie. And I'm like, I probably shouldn't be playing this out loud. Like, I was like, fuck it. I'm walking around in my underwear, working out, watching some porno. People are driving by like, what the fuck is wrong with this guy?
Oh my God. You're like, oh, what's his name? Patrick Bateman. Bateman. Yeah. When he's doing his sit-ups watching Texas Chainsaw.
I do watch shit like that when I'm working out. This has been great. This is a good episode.
I'm sorry I derailed it so much with talking about everything else, but
no, that's what we do. That's what I do.
When I always love talking to you. Like, you're one of my favorite people to talk to that I don't get to talk to a lot. Like Bo, I get to talk to him all the time. Duncan, I talk to him all the time. I rarely get to talk to you. So when I do, I enjoy it because you have such eclectic tastes, and it is extremely rare for you to not get a reference. I don't think you ever haven't. And I throw out some really obscure things sometimes, and I don't expect anyone to get what I'm referring to because it's just so random.
I think you've got me a couple times. I'm sure of it. But I mean, like, it happens. Like, I have my strong points. We all have our strong points. Now, it's just nice to have somebody on the show who, like, knows a lot about horror movies that's intelligent. So I always try to get those people. And I've always felt like on the summer series, I was like, when they paired up at the things, I was like, there's people like, you don't always agree with everyone. It's like, but I understand where they're coming from. Like, and there's some people that I'm just like, you're fucking bananas. Like, I don't know what's going on. It's fine. It's fine. I don't care, but you're crazy. Like, there's like you and Bo, I was like, and Duncan, I'm like, yeah, I see what they're saying. It makes sense. But you know, like some people, I'm just like, you're insane. Like, so
no, it's true.
Yeah.
And you can also tell, I think, sometimes when people are talking from a place that is, I'm not gonna say they don't know anything, but I'm gonna say they maybe don't put the time in, or you know what? Does that make sense?
Or they can't look at things objectively sometimes. Like, you're like, I like Poltergeist. I used to love. It's not my favorite movie anymore, But I'm not going to sit there and argue with somebody that Poltergeist isn't a great movie that didn't impact horror forever. So I'm not going to be like, no, it doesn't belong there. Like, but I'm like, no, I mean, it's Poltergeist. What the fuck do you want me to say? Like, it's great. Next. You know what I mean? Like, I don't fucking know what you want me to say. Like, I mean, I don't have the love for it I used to, but I know it's a great movie and I know why it's important. And I can see 45 movies that ripped it off right after it. So yeah, what the fuck? It's Poltergeist.
Oh, people still rip off Poltergeist.
Every day.
Sadly, the remake couldn't.
I didn't even. That's the one thing that makes me. I shouldn't say this. This is the kind of shit that makes me laugh when people are like, and I don't hate it. And I'm talking shit about it again. The new Evil Dead movie, which is fine. It's a fine movie, but people are mad at it because it's not like the original Evil Dead. So it's like, yeah, but if you're gonna riff on The Exorcist and The Shining, you can at least riff on the original Evil Dead if you're supposed to be in the same franchise.
No, that's true.
But it's a fine movie.
You're not wrong.
But the original Evil Dead ripped off The Exorcist a lot more than people want to admit, which is fine because it was super popular at the time, and that's cool. I love Evil Dead. But I mean, I love Sam Raimi, so I'm going to be gravitated towards Raimi's movies, not Evil Dead, if that makes any sense.
No, it does. And you know how I feel about Evil Dead 2.
I like it more than I used to, but for some reason, like, it never resonated with me as much as the first and the third one. And I like I don't know.
Me too. That is exactly the same. And we just watched it again because I promised our listeners that I would watch it again and give it another shot. And I did, and I liked it more. But I still, if I'm going to watch one of the Raimi Evil Deads, it's gonna be the first one or it's gonna be Army of Darkness.
And it's weird. I think I just saw two. I saw two last. I saw 3 when I was a kid because it was on TV. I was like 6, 7, watched it all the time. And then I saw 1 when I was probably like 11, 12. And then for some reason, I did not see 2 until I was probably like 14, 15. And I did not have the connection with part 2 like I did the others. And I rate it high. I think it's a great movie. I think it's awesome. I think it changed the landscape of splatter movies forever. I just don't have the affinity I have for part 1 and 3 as I do, especially 3 for some reason. I know I'm a goofy son of a bitch, but as I do for 2, as you know, that I don't have it for 2 for some reason.
Well, my big thing that people always get me on this too, because I'm like, well, I love Evil Dead and how, scary, because I think the original Evil Dead is genuinely scary.
Yeah.
And I was like, it kind of hurts my feelings that part 2 went totally away from that and just is so slapstick. Although now watching it this more recent time, there were a couple of scenes that I thought were done really well and were scary, and no one's going to take anything from Raimi as far as camera work and direction. Like, he's incredible. So that I love. It was a little wacky, and they're like, yeah, but you like Army of Darkness. I'm like, yeah. I don't know. I don't get it. I don't get it myself. I don't get it myself.
I'm the same way. And that's the only series I don't care. Like, I don't care that they're all vastly different from each other. They don't follow the same fucking... I don't care. Normally, I'm like, this sucks. Like, Night of the Demons 2, people are like, I love it. I was like, it breaks the only rule that the first movie had. It can fuck. Go fuck. Like, I don't hate Night of the Demons 2, but it can go fuck. Like, it just doesn't make... It's not even the same world. It's just like...
I actually like that one.
It's fine, but it doesn't, you know what I mean? Like, it breaks the rule of leaving Whole House. That's the only thing that made Whole House scary is you die on Halloween in Whole House, you lose your soul.
Yeah, and they can't cross the water, and they can't, they're trapped there.
The first 10 minutes of this movie, they just break the fucking rules. I'm like, okay, we're not even. But then the third one does the same thing as the first one, and everyone hates that one. And I'm like, it's just a mediocre movie. I don't hate it, but it's what it is. And then 28 weeks later, the first 10 minutes of that movie is outstanding. The rest is just like, did they even watch the first movie? I don't even think they did.
I actually love 28 Weeks Later too, but it's mainly for that beginning.
That beginning's so good.
And then when it comes back around at the end, like when he goes into the room and she's on the gurney and she ends up biting his lip when he goes to kiss her, and I'm just like, oh,
that's a good part. I think what lost me was when the dude does the helicopter blades and tilts it, cuts all the zombies' heads off.
Oh yeah, totally unbelievable. But
I was just like,
kind of hilarious.
Stupid, but hey, I don't. For that movie's tone, it was just really weird. But then I'm the idiot who's like, you know what? Chud 1's all right, but I'm gonna want some more of that chud too. So I'm completely inconsistently stupid. So we're all like that. Like,
yeah, we all have our
like
things. Like when you mentioned Halloween 2 during the game, I love Halloween. I do, and I love John Carpenter. I have a great deal of respect for that man and for that film. But given the option between 1 and 2 just to watch, I'll watch 2 because it's more slashery, and I am all about slashers. You know?
I'll just do 3 over and over again.
I don't have a problem with that either. I absolutely. That's another one I saw in the theater, and I think the reason I never had an issue with it was because when I saw it, I was too young to realize that Michael was missing, or there should have, what everybody was mad about. I didn't even notice because I didn't realize they were supposed to be. Like, he should have been there. Like, I didn't know there was anything wrong. So to me, I was just watching this movie that I thought was really scary, when the kid got bugs and snakes coming out. And
I think I just was mad because everyone told me to be mad when I was 10. But as I got older, I was like, no, this movie's cool. I like it. But I consider Halloween 3, Prince of Darkness, and Life Force the lost Quatermass trilogy that never existed, because they're all like Quatermass movies. They're all high concept and really weird and just out of their fucking mind science movies. And I like all 3 of those movies quite a bit. Like I feel like they're very
Prince of Darkness especially. Like that rings very true to me. And
Quatermass, a huge Quatermass guy.
Those films are gorgeous, or film TV. Like, how did that go? It was supposed to originally be a TV series, or it was a TV series.
Was it a BBC series and like it was lost? I don't know if it was ever completed, but the initial movie was 56, the Quatermass Experiment. Yeah. And then they had part 2 and 60, I don't remember. And then the third one was like 68. And all 3 of those movies are brilliant. And I know they made some more later on, but I've only seen the Hammer films, and I love
Me too.
those.
Yeah,
they're great movies.
I watched a whole documentary about it, and now I can't remember any of it. I'm so old, but now I can't remember any of it. But there was some really interesting behind the scenes stuff as far as those movies were concerned, and they just look beautiful. Hammer to me is just every film is gorgeous.
For sure.
Like, I don't even care if I like the movie; it's gonna be beautiful.
Agreed.
And they have one of the most beautiful color palettes. I just love a Hammer movie.
And the first 2 Quatermasses are black and white, and they're still gorgeous.
Yeah. Well, and that's like Bava, like
Bava always is good. Best eye.
His black and white movies to me are just as gorgeous as his color films, if not more so, because it takes more skill I think it takes more skill to properly make a black and white film, because you have to really pay attention to light and shadow. And you can't just and Brian says this all the time, but like today, someone will just make a movie and then flip the black and white switch and think that's good enough. And it's not. That's not how you make a black and white film.
No, I could never do that. One other thing that's registering for me that I want to mention is how this movie ends with the guys like the things they can do with special effects. The guy in the bar, he's not Toby Hooper, but I could have swore he is. He's like, she was a werewolf and they shot her. Like,
they shot her. Yeah.
That reminds me of something Toby Hooper would do. That I guarantee it's like you're plaster. It's like, don't mean it ain't.
Don't mean it. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that part. It should have been Buck Flower or Toby Hooper.
Don't mean it didn't really happen. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, Buck Flower would be phenomenal.
She's a goddamn werewolf. I know she's a werewolf. Must have got her with a silver bullet.
That would have been funny if Hooper, because that's the kind of thing that
they would do.
I wouldn't be surprised if they did it. They do it all the time, or they
would do it if that movie was made like 5 years later. That would have been Hooper, but
yeah, for sure.
At that time, I do think that scene is very reminiscent of the scene at They Live at the end when they break the satellite. It's very similar. I mean, Carpenter and Dante, I'm sure, again, same kind of mindset.
Carpenter, no, he didn't. I was gonna say he didn't come up through Corman. No.
Trying to think. He was with Dan O'Bannon making those schools like Dark Star and
Dark Star and actually going to school.
Yeah.
But I always loved him because I love westerns and he loves westerns, and that's why my favorite John Carpenter film
is Assault on Precinct 13.
Yeah. How'd
It's
you
most
know?
Western. This got to be
Oh,
it's
well,
most
yeah,
Western.
it
Besides
is.
Ghost of Mars, which is just a space Western.
Ugh,
I like
don't
it, but if it's your favorite John Carpenter movie, there's something wrong with you. Like, I'm not trying to be, you know what I mean? Like, if somebody's like, my favorite's Ghost of Mars. I'm like, how many?
Oh, I thought you were talking about Assault, and I'm like, well, damn.
No. I said Ghost of Mars is his most Western, but Assault's is next. And nobody in their right mind has a Ghost of Mars as their favorite John Carpenter.
No, I don't. I've never heard a single person say it. And if I do, then they're going to probably follow it up with The Ward being there.
Vampires. Vampires is very Western, too.
Oh, I actually like Vampires.
I like all his movies I've seen. I don't dislike any of them.
I feel like The Ward is not a bad movie. I think it's just it doesn't feel like a Carpenter film to me.
I never watched The Ward because it didn't look like I'd like it or hate it.
It's very workmanlike. It was clear that there was no passion there, and
yeah, that's
Carpenter's
depressing.
the kind of director, if he's not into it, then it doesn't matter if he's doing it, because you won't know.
You could see him just being like, all right.
Yeah. And yeah, Assault on Precinct 13, I fell in love with that movie when Kim got shot with the ice cream cone. Or not shot with an ice cream cone, but she was holding an ice cream cone when she got shot.
I was going to say, what is this? Killer Clowns from Outer Space? Hey, Killer was a Sunday?
And then the score. That's one of my favorite John Carpenter scores. Too.
I still remember the line in that movie that From Dusk Till Dawn lifted. Should I save the last bullets for ourselves? No, save it for the next fucker that tries to get you. Yeah, that's a good line there. I think we're good. Unless you have anything else to say about Howling.
No, just that I understand why people will put London over that film. I do. And why London won the awards. But I don't want The Howling to go unnoticed, because Rob Bottin's work in that is fantastic. I think Dante's work is fantastic. All the actors really, they bring everything. They bring all they have. And I think it really deserves more respect than it gets, because it is overshadowed. But like I said, Landis nailed it with An American Werewolf in London. You can't go wrong. To be perfectly honest, they're probably really tied. I'd say Howling has a little bit of a lead just because it's a bipedal werewolf. But
I think the werewolf design in Howling I might like better, but I think I prefer American Werewolf just because I don't know, it's just so structurally, it's just a lot of fun. Both movies are not boring. They're very fast paced. They're very good runtime. God, bring back the 90-minute movie, man, please. For the love of God, we need it.
Do you ever notice like YouTubers now will often say, this is a pretty short movie, it was only 90 minutes.
That's standard.
And I'm like, that's what it's supposed to be.
80 minutes is a tight movie. Stop calling shit tight when it's over 100 minutes. It ain't fucking, I mean, it can be tight like in story, but bro, don't use that fucking order. Like Monster Squad is 82 fucking minutes.
Right.
Return of the Living Dead is like 85 minutes. Those movies they're fast.
Holy shit. I was just about to use Monster Squad as an example for that.
Complete story. 82 minutes.
Yeah.
Great story. Great movie too.
There were a couple of movies this year that I thought were really, really good, but they just were way too long for what they needed to be. And I'm like, don't do that. There's nothing wrong with brevity. As long as your story is complete and well done, it doesn't have to be long. Now I understand, obviously, to be a feature-length film, you have to meet, 60 minutes for feature length?
66 or 65, has to be over 60. It changes all the time. I don't know.
But if that's all you need to tell your story, then use what you need to tell your story. It's when people start going on and on and on that it can ruin a movie. Because how many movies have you seen that would have been great as like a 20-minute vignette, but
a lot
as a feature-length film, it just ruined it?
Or how many movies would have been great if you cut 20 to 25 minutes or a storyline out? Like, what was that one vampire movie on the plane? Cut 25 minutes out of it, you got yourself a gem. Leave it in, and you got yourself a mediocre vampire movie on a plane.
Exactly.
Oh, Project Wolf Hunting. would have been a 10 out of 10. But since you got this 15th storyline in there about superhero shit, it's like an 8 out of 10.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like they don't really. It's like I got like ideas for 6 movies. Let's put them all into one.
We got to make sure we can sequelize this motherfucker.
You know, yeah. It's sad that sometimes, or a lot of times, business gets in the way of the art.
For sure.
But
But
there will always be people like us who appreciate them and love them for what they are.
Indeed. I'm not very picky when it comes to old movies. I can be a little bit of a prick, I guess, on newer films. So I try not to talk about them as much because I just don't want to be that guy. But is there anything you want to plug?
Well, you already mentioned it. The show I do with Brian is Horror in the House of Sammons. We're about to come back with the first episode of this season, which we will be doing our top 10 of 2023. That's how we start off the year. So that's going to be coming out soon. And I sporadically do a show with Bo called What You Watching, but that's been a while. So that's pretty much all I'm doing these days.
Yeah, those are great shows, very entertaining. And she does her main show with her husband, and they have a vast knowledge and a vast collection. Bo Ransdell's also really great. That's a funny show. And yeah, you guys just kind of go off on tangents, and tangents are always fun as long as they're somewhat movie related, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, where else are you going to come up with the name of a strip club? I don't know if you heard that. We were talking about Congo. And and I was like, the lost city of Minge, or no, the lost city of Zinj is what it actually is. And I was like, you can have a strip club and call it the lost city of Minge. See, that's the kind of humor.
That sounds like a really gross strip joint.
It does. I wouldn't go there, but
they only serve sesame cake.
Stop eating my sesame cake. Have you heard me do that?
Yeah, I think I have. Yeah,
okay.
I think so. I love that. I actually enjoy Congo. I wouldn't say it's a good movie, but I would say it's got a great cast and it's fun. It's a good B movie.
No, but I fucking love it, and that's where I get my Delroy Lindo impression. So, stop eating my sesame cake.
I love Tim Curry's great in that movie.
He is.
So me and my dad saw that in theaters, and Tim Curry was the best. He shined in that. He was definitely the funniest.
He's great. And he's great in everything he did too. Like, I love that man too. So much talent.
Always good.
If anyone out there is a Lovecraft fan, then my husband Brian Sammons is a prolific editor, writer. If anybody plays Call of Cthulhu, he does a lot of scenarios for that. So yeah. I mean, come check out our show if you are interested. It's a podcast, and it's pretty much everywhere you can find podcasts, and we try to have a good time. We both love horror. We live horror. That is my mother-in-law doesn't like coming into my home because it scares her. And and that's how we met, is podcasting.
That's great. I appreciate you coming on. It was a great show, and we're out of here.
Holy shit!
What is this?
Wow!
What are you kids watching?
The newslee's turned into a werewolf.
Oh boy. La mujer se cambió en un lobo. Hijo. Switch, damn it, switch!
Doesn't that look good? Tender, meaty chunks of tantalizing nutrition, soaked in
Things they do with special effects these days. Did you see the one about the guy in the spaceship?
It was real. He turned into a werewolf and they shot her.
You're plastic.
Doesn't mean it wasn't real.
Hey, Ernie, put a pepper steak on for me, will you? And a hamburger for the lady.
How do you want that?
How you want it, honey?
Rare.